All right. Thank you, Emma, for that introduction. It is an absolute privilege to be here tonight among these amazing practitioners, and thank you all for coming. My gosh, look at you all. As Emma mentioned, my name is Nikki, and I am a naturopath, nutritionist, and medical herbalist. Everyone has hormones, and they are constantly analysing the state of your body. I like to think of hormones as little chemical messengers that are working to keep you in a state of balance. Hormones are very powerful, and small changes can really have a big impact on how you feel. So when I was 19, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS for short. I was told that 2 of my reproductive hormones were around the wrong way. And my doctor gave me the oral contraceptive pill and said, here, take this. This is going to bring your periods back. We didn't have Dr. Google back then, so my mum and I drove straight to the library and we got out as many books as we could find on PCOS. And so I think it is fair to say that that is when my fascination around hormones and natural health began. You have to push it really hard. So, introducing the endocrine system. This is your hormonal network, and it influences almost every cell, organ, and function in your body. It plays a role in regulating mood and energy, metabolism and weight, sexual function, and reproductive processes. The master commanders of the endocrine system are the hypothalamus and the pituitary. These are located at the base of your brain, and these glands, they receive feedback from your body, and they communicate to your thyroid, which is located in the front of your neck, to your adrenal glands, which we've already heard about tonight, which are located on top of your kidneys, and to your reproductive organs. I like to think of these 3 glands as like a 3-legged stool, where each gland represents a leg. If one leg is out of balance, then the whole stool is off balance. And the same can really be seen with your hormones. It is very difficult for me to talk about one particular gland or leg without considering the other. So I'm going to start with the reproductive hormones. Here is, oh, no I'm not. Is it going to work? Here is an image of the female reproductive hormones during 1 month of a normal cycle in the top graph there. Below that, in comparison, is the male reproductive hormones during his entire life. So my non-scientific observation here is, how can males expect us females to be so level-headed and consistent when we have all of that going on repeat every month? So no, ideally we want to make our way through the monthly cycle with as little disruption to our lives as we can. So during the woman's monthly cycle, estrogen, which is shown there in the orange line, is slowly increasing for the first 2 weeks, and during that time it is developing an egg. Once estrogen reaches a certain level, it then stimulates ovulation. Once you have ovulated, you then produce huge amounts of progesterone, and that is shown in the blue line. Progesterone is very, very important during that second half of your cycle. So you can see how progesterone is raised above the level of estrogen, and that's a very key point. These 2 hormones then either decrease and the period arrives, or if conception occurs, then the 2 hormones continue to rise to maintain the pregnancy. For the guys, it's quite simple. Testosterone there is the main reproductive hormone, and that naturally declines as a man ages. Cool. So let's have a look at the female reproductive hormones, the 2 main ones being estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is essential for building bones, it slows ageing, supports libido, regulates appetite, and boosts mood. So fair to say it is very important. But too much or too little of this hormone can also cause problems. Up on the screen there you can see some signs that can suggest that there might be a hormonal imbalance caused by too much estrogen.
or estrogen excess. Estrogens can sometimes be fine, but it's actually a relative deficiency to progesterone levels being low that causes the relative estrogen excess. So signs of estrogen excess can include heavy and painful periods, low thyroid function, breast pain, fibroids, and PMT. Progesterone is a fantastic hormone, and it is needed to keep us calm and relaxed. It acts as an antidepressant and an anti-inflammatory. Progesterone is also a precursor to the production of something called GABA, which is a lovely calming neurotransmitter that also supports our mood. I often hear women saying that they feel evil and irritable the week or so before their period. They feel depressed, get anxious, and can't sleep. These are all signs that there might not be enough progesterone, especially in those 2 weeks before the period arrives. So how do we make sure that we're producing progesterone? Well, our body produces progesterone from a thing called the corpus luteum that is left over at the ovary after ovulation. So the number one way that you can make sure that you're producing progesterone is to make sure that you're ovulating. So you need the right amount of estrogen to ovulate, and you need to ovulate to produce the right amount of progesterone. So this is what was happening with me when I was diagnosed with PCOS, which, by the way, affects 1 in 4 women. I didn't have a period because my estrogen levels were imbalanced, and I wasn't ovulating, so I wasn't producing any progesterone. I started to take the oral contraceptive pill as the GP had recommended, but quickly realised that this was just masking my hormonal imbalance and wasn't actually dealing with the underlying issues. So one of the things that can affect your levels of reproductive hormones, especially progesterone, is stress. Stress, which is the adrenal leg of our three-legged stool, is one of the main things that can really affect your hormonal balance right through your endocrine system. The adrenal glands respond to stress by initially producing adrenaline in the fight or flight response. If stress becomes prolonged, then cortisol is a main stress hormone that is produced. The stress response can be a good thing, as Emma has mentioned. It is needed for our survival, and cortisol levels are actually meant to be the highest first thing in the morning, and this helps to get us up and out of bed. Cortisol is also a potent anti-inflammatory, but the issue occurs when stress becomes chronic or long-term. You see, if your demand for cortisol is high due to very high chronic stress levels, then your adrenal glands will steal progesterone to make the hormone cortisol. So you lose the lovely anti-anxiety and antidepressant effects of sufficient progesterone. Now, this is a major issue for menopausal women, because once you're menopausal, you are no longer ovulating, so you are no longer producing progesterone from the ovary. But the body is a pretty smart thing, so there is a backup supply of progesterone from the adrenal glands. But this progesterone can be turned into cortisol if your stress levels are really high. If you are heading into your menopausal years, my advice is to get stress under control to aid for a really smooth transition. Now, let's not forget about the guys. Stress can also affect the production of testosterone. There was a study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology, and it found that testosterone levels decreased significantly during and after skydiving. So you might not want to do that. This is obviously an acute stress response, so you can just imagine what might be the testosterone levels if the stress was chronic. We are not designed to be everything to everyone. While we're constantly juggling work, family, and social life, we're constantly on the go, and we're sending a message to our adrenal glands that we're running because our life is in danger. The last thing your body wants to do when it thinks your life is in danger is prioritise producing reproductive hormones so you can produce another human. Although adrenal fatigue is not recognised in medicine, it is unfortunately a really very real thing for some people. Adrenal fatigue is really a simplified term to summarise the complex symptoms of someone who is constantly tired. Tired after a good night's sleep, tired after doing the exercise that they used to enjoy, and so tired that it is affecting their life and those around them. Adrenal fatigue is a bit like a battery that has been running on high for a very long time and now has become flat and depleted of the energy it once stored. A lot of us are constantly in the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight system, and it is time to make some changes, so we're spending more time in the parasympathetic nervous system, where your body gets a chance to rest, repair, and digest. It is time to make some changes. It is time to stop. It is time to slow down. And it is time to breathe. If there is one thing you get out of tonight, I hope it is that you think about your sources of stress and make some small changes that will have a big impact on your health. So far, we have heard from Emma about how breathing can affect your nervous system, and from Jin about how your emotions can affect you physically. From a nutritional perspective, the first thing I want to discuss is coffee. Yeah, I have lost count of how many women have come and sat in my clinic to get some help for their anxiety, and they are drinking coffee. The next sentence I usually hear from them is, "Please don't take the coffee away from me." Coffee is a stimulant, and it will cause a stress response in your adrenal glands to produce the stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. I think coffee is fine for some. We know it's got great antioxidants, and I was reading a study the other day that said that it can prolong your life. But I don't think coffee is good for anyone who is chronically stressed or suffering from anxiety. If you find yourself yawning and even more tired after drinking it, then this is probably a sign that your adrenal glands are at the point where coffee can't even stimulate them anymore. So coffee, along with alcohol, processed food, and sugar, can all place additional stress on our body. We need to cut back on being everything to everyone and prioritise some time towards looking after our hormonal health. We prioritise our family and our work, but what about prioritising our health? Spend some time making nourishing meals, because let's face it, eating nutrient-dense food does take a little bit more time, preparation, and effort. So you can put together something that contains all of the many vitamins and minerals that your body needs. Most important for hormonal health are magnesium and zinc, vitamin B6, vitamin C, and omega-3, just to name a few. We get these nutrients from a well-balanced whole food diet, not by surviving on toast and coffee. We need to cut back on alcohol. Sorry to say it. One factor that can contribute to estrogen excess that I was discussing before is poor liver detoxification of estrogens. And drinking alcohol regularly will impact on how well your liver does this job. If you feel you're doing everything you can to manage your stress, but you're still struggling, then I often use herbal medicine. A couple of my favourite herbs are withania, known as an adaptogenic, and passion flower. This is an anti-anxiety herb, and research has supported the theory that it can help to produce or boost GABA production. And GABA is that lovely, calming neurotransmitter that I mentioned before. I took some passion flower before, it was great. Withania. So, however, it is important for you to determine what herb is the right one for you. Unfortunately, stress is always going to be in our lives, but it is how you perceive it and what you do about it that will determine how it affects you. Let's take a look at the thyroid gland. This is the third leg of our three-legged stool, and the thyroid is located in the front of the neck. And this little gland has a big impact on your health. The thyroid controls your metabolism, and if it is underactive, you might feel tired, you might be putting on weight easily, you might be feeling the cold, you might be feeling depressed, noticing that you're constipated and have got dry skin. High stress or high cortisol levels have been shown to reduce the body's production of the thyroid hormones. We know that having an underactive thyroid can affect fertility. There has been some research to show that low thyroid function can worsen PMT symptoms. Postpartum thyroiditis, which is issues with the thyroid gland after you've had a baby, is thought to affect about 10% of women. Often they're just told that they're tired because they're a new mum, but it can also be signs of low thyroid function. Inflammation has been shown to negatively impact on the thyroid, and cortisol and progesterone are two of our body's main anti-inflammatory hormones. So we can really start to see the cycle between these glands and how hormonal imbalance in one can affect another. When it comes to treating thyroid imbalance, the first thing we want to find out is there an autoimmune component? If there are thyroid antibodies, then this opens up a whole other area for treatment, which is unfortunately outside of the scope of tonight. But iodine and selenium are two of the main nutrients for thyroid balance. And iodine and selenium are very deficient in our soil in New Zealand, so I believe that a lot of people can benefit from increasing their intake of these nutrients. You also need iodine for reproductive health, as we have a lot of iodine receptors in our reproductive organs. So, stress can affect reproductive hormones and thyroid function. Low thyroid can increase stress and can affect reproductive hormones. And reproductive hormonal imbalance can alter the stress response and thyroid function. It can be a vicious cycle for some, or it can be a balanced, intertwined hormonal network that keeps us calm and energised. From my personal experience, I started with the hormonal imbalance when I was the 1 in 4 diagnosed with PCOS. I have had low thyroid function in the past, and I really need to watch my stress levels, which have the ability to really catch me out at times. It is a constant juggling act, and everyone is different. I have learnt to listen to my body and try to understand what it is telling me. Most of the time, it is telling me to stop, breathe, eat some more veggies, and take some time out. Thank you. Which one do you want me to put black?